Everyone is expecting Detective Joseph Quinn to show up in the upcoming season of Dexter Resurrection. With the death of his partner and hermano Angel Batista, people are predicting that Quinn will travel to New York to get to the bottom of his murder. But that's probably the dumbest thing he could do. Let's break down why Dexter Morgan versus Joey Quinn isn't even close. I'm sorry, but this isn't a mystery Quinn wants to solve. We know that for sure, because he's proved it already, and more than once. After Rita was killed by Trinity, Quinn started looking into Dexter, thinking he may have been involved. He started up an off-the-books investigation into Dexter with the help of Stan Liddy. He was already kind of backing off of it all after seeing how much it would hurt Deb, but when Liddy was mysteriously killed, Quinn knew he didn't want the smoke. Before Liddy died, he let Quinn know that Dexter was collecting large amounts of plastic with an unknown woman, Lumen, and he showed Quinn pictures of Dexter dumping garbage bags off the side of his boat in the middle of the night. If that didn't prove to Quinn that Dexter was a killer, he probably got the message loud and clear after Liddy was suddenly killed with no other explanation. Based on the voicemails Liddy left Quinn, right before he was found stabbed to death in his van, Quinn had to know that Liddy had something huge on Dexter right before he died. He almost had to know that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher, or at least a killer at that point. Quinn never crossed Dexter again after that. Just look at his face when Maria arrested Dexter, claiming that she had proof he was the Bay Harbor Butcher. Everyone else was visibly shocked, but Joey, he didn't look surprised at all. And when he watched Dexter expertly kill Oliver Saxon on camera, he had yet another knowing expression on his face. He didn't sound convinced himself when he said it was self-defense. He sounded like he wanted Dexter and Angel to know that that's how he would be describing it when the investigation into the incident began. Whether it was true or not, that's what the camera showed, and he wasn't looking any deeper than that. He probably made that choice mostly because after what he did to Deb, Quinn wanted Saxon dead too. But the fact that pressing the matter would mean crossing Dexter definitely didn't hurt either. He had two opportunities to corner Dexter, and he let both of them pass. He knew then that trying to pin Dexter down would only complicate his life and possibly end it. None of that has changed. Quinn may want to avenge Batista, but that doesn't mean he will be able to pull it off. The fact of the matter is that even after all of these years, Quinn is still no match for Dexter Morgan. First, there is the obvious reason. Dexter has done this song and dance several times now. Quinn isn't going to beat him at his own game. Dexter's code demands that he does not get caught, and he will do anything he can to make sure that it doesn't happen. He may be trying not to kill innocent people anymore, but he's never had any problem making them look crazy. When Dokes came after him, Dexter did everything in his power to make him look like a lunatic. At first, he goaded Dokes into attacking him in front of everyone, earning Dokes a suspension from the force. That was just the beginning. Next, once he got Dokes locked in the cabin, he started creating evidence that would make it look like he was the Bay Harbor Butcher. He planted Dokes' fingertips on an identical set of knives to be found by the police. He told people that Dokes had been tailing him, and it always scared him. Dokes played himself by leaving Dexter's blood slides in the trunk of his car long enough for the FBI to find them, and by the end of it all, everyone believed that James Dokes was a deranged serial killer who blew himself up to avoid capture. Even if Lila hadn't killed Dokes, Dokes' life would have still been ruined. Dexter made him look completely guilty, and no jury was going to believe Dokes over Dexter. Not with all the forensic evidence they had on James. And Dexter didn't want to kill Maria at first either. He tried other methods before it got that far. Maria LaGorta was the only person who never believed that James was the Butcher. She almost let it go until she found a blood slide identical to the Butcher's trophies at a crime scene years after James had died. Her gut told her that the Butcher was still active. Since they already knew the killer was an employee at Miami Metro, her list was pretty short, and it wasn't long until she zeroed in on Dexter. That turned out to be a fatal mistake on her part, of course. But before he planned to kill Maria, Dexter just hoped he could make her look crazy enough to get her fired and off his back. No one would support her investigation if she looked unhinged. Dexter let her arrest him and parade him through the department, and just like with Dokes, Dexter planted evidence to discredit Maria. He made it look as if she was trying to frame him as the Butcher to clear Dokes' name. Not because James was innocent, but because she loved him and couldn't stand the idea of him going down in history as a serial killer. It also made her look bad that she could be partners and lovers with a killer for years and never realize it. Dexter perfectly set up the motive, means, and opportunity to make it look like Maria was framing him. She announced to the entire department that she could prove that Dexter was the true Bay Harbor Butcher, and absolutely no one believed her. When she died shortly after all of that, her death was chalked up as a result of her downward spiral near the end, and once again, Dexter was in the clear. And don't forget that he successfully framed Paul to look like he was using heroin again, getting him rearrested and sentenced to life in prison based on the 3 strikes law in Florida. True crime writer Sal Price would have been another person Dexter had publicly smeared, and got arrested for a crime he didn't commit if Hannah McKay hadn't killed him by poisoning first. Dexter broke into the man's house, stole his DNA, and used it to make it look like he was linked to an unsolved murder. Why? Simply because Sal was planning to write a book about Hannah that would have exposed her as the killer she really was. Dexter was about to ruin a man's life just to keep a killer he liked out of prison. That's honestly ridiculously treacherous, but it just shows how far Dexter is willing to go against people who cross him. Most recently, Batista gave it his best shot, and Dexter just made him look insane too. At first, the detectives with the NYPD were willing to help Angel in his hunt for the Bay Harbor Butcher, at least a little bit, but after one conversation with Dexter, Batista's credibility was immediately called into question. Dexter made it sound like Angel lost his mind after his partner Dokes turned out to be the Bay Harbor Butcher and his ex-wife died in the line of duty. Pretty soon, Claudette was looking further into who Angel really was, found out he wasn't even a cop anymore, and decided that not only was he wasting her time, he was committing a felony by LARPing as a member of law enforcement. Not long after he lost the support of the NYPD, Batista was dead, and Dexter was off on his merry way again, not even linked to Angel's death and no longer being investigated as the Butcher by anyone in New York or Miami, and Quinn may want to leave things that way. If Dexter could frame all of those people, what would stop him from doing the same thing to Quinn? He may not work for the cops anymore, but Dexter is still a forensics expert. If he wants to plant evidence to make Quinn look like a criminal or a lunatic, that won't be a problem for him. And let's not forget Quinn has a very shady past. He was suspected to be a dirty cop when he was transferred to Miami Metro Homicide from narcotics. He was the subject of a serious investigation by Internal Affairs as soon as he was introduced. Dexter caught him stealing money from a crime scene. And Quinn used to be on the payroll for the Koshka Brotherhood. Who knows how many other shady things he did before going straight. Making Quinn look untrustworthy wouldn't be at all difficult for Dexter to manage. Maria Laguerre was a highly respected and high-ranking member of the homicide department. Dokes and Batista were as well. If Dexter could make upstanding officers like them look crazy and crooked, Quinn doesn't stand a chance. That's the most obvious reason that he is no threat to Dexter. We have seen this play out. Even with a formal investigation into Dexter, he would make sure that nothing stuck to him. If he goes after Dexter, then Quinn is likely to end up unemployed and in a loony bin, and honestly, that would be the best possible outcome for him. When anyone gets too close to Dexter, innocent people suffer every time. Even people who pose no threat to him have had their lives ruined because of their proximity to Dexter. Thanks to Dexter, Ramon Preto lost both of his brothers within weeks of each other. Paul Bennett crossed Dexter and wound up beaten to death in prison after being framed as a relapsed druggie. When Zach Hamilton started shadowing Dexter, he was dead in less than a month. After dating Dexter, first Angela Bishop had to grapple with the fact that he killed her sergeant. Then, she had to quit her job, uproot her entire life, and flee Iron Lake with her daughter to start over somewhere new in hopes that Dexter wouldn't find them. And Dexter's lifestyle destroyed his own family too. Rita was killed, the kids were shipped to Orlando, Harrison was left traumatized, and eventually, Deb died too. All of that was the result of what Batista calls Dexter's bullshit. Quinn is perfectly aware of all of this. The threat that Dexter poses to the people around him is in no way theoretical. Even if he wasn't a serial killer, anyone with knowledge of the multiple tragedies linked to Dexter would want to steer clear of him. Now, Quinn is from New York, which means there is a pretty good chance that he has family there. He does mention in the original series that he and his family aren't particularly close, but he doesn't say why that is. And just because someone isn't close with their family doesn't mean they want them to die. Quinn already believes that Dexter was involved in Rita's death. He may not be sure how exactly, but he most likely knows that Dexter is related to Deb's death too. After seeing the footage of Dexter leaving the hospital with Deb's body, Batista didn't know why Dexter took her or what he did with the body, but he blamed Dexter for her death based on everything else he knew about his past. Quinn could have made the same analysis. For all he knows, Dexter could have taken Deb's body and dumped it to make sure that, on the off chance she came out of her coma, she couldn't say anything to expose him. He literally has no clue what Dexter's involvement in Deb's death was. The point is that if Dexter is willing to hurt his own family just to avoid being taken in for his crimes, why would he show Quinn's family any mercy? If something did ever happen to his family after his pursuit of Dexter, Quinn would have to live the rest of his life wondering if it was his fault, and that's another advantage for Dexter. The liability that comes from having a family is the whole reason. Harry always told Dexter that he couldn't afford to be close to anyone. Innocent people will always be collateral damage in a life like his. Given what he knows about Dexter, Quinn has to assume that targeting him will very likely mean putting his own family in harm's way, not just himself. And that's a pretty frightening possibility. Unless Quinn really doesn't care about his family at all, he will need to think long and hard about if and how he should go after Dexter. Otherwise, he may have a few more funerals to attend in the coming months. And that's assuming he makes it out alive himself. Quinn would be terrified of going toe-to-toe with Dexter, and that's with very good reason. He would be cautious in ways that Dexter wouldn't need to be because he would have more people to protect. He would be second-guessing himself the entire time. He would be paranoid and off his game, a game that, even on his best day, is no match for Dexter's. Speaking of families, Dexter has always been fiercely protective of his. Now he only has one known blood relative left on Earth, his son Harrison, and the lengths Dexter is willing to go to keep Harrison safe are off the charts. Everyone thinks of Dexter as an emotionless, self-serving psychopath, but that isn't entirely true. He sacrificed his relationship with Hannah and his own child to keep them safe. He faked his death and banished himself to the other side of the country to make sure that he would no longer be a potentially deadly force in Harrison's life. He wrote to Hannah years later saying, "Let me die so my son may live." He even encouraged Harrison to kill him so that he could move forward and have a safe and normal life. If Dexter is willing to die to protect Harrison, he's definitely willing to kill someone to do so. Quinn is technically an innocent by Dexter's original standards, but that isn't a guarantee he would spare him if it came down to it. Just ask Maria Laguerti and Coach Logan. He was willing to cut Charlie's head off with a giggly saw just for threatening Harrison. If Quinn even sneezes in a way that makes Harrison's life marginally harder, he might find himself wrapped in plastic, but in a weird way. So Harrison may be the only person who could keep Quinn alive if he came after Dexter. Dexter knows that if he kills another innocent cop, Harrison won't forgive him. The main reason he shot Dexter in the first place was because he killed Coach Logan, and an arguably good and innocent person. And just look at how he reacted when Dexter called him from Batista's phone. Dexter tried to breeze past it, but Harrison wouldn't even continue the conversation until Dexter told him why he was calling from Angel's phone. Harrison wasn't a fan of Batista, but he wouldn't be okay with Dexter just killing him, and that feeling probably extends to Quinn as well. Of course, that may just mean that Dexter has to look a little harder for a justification to kill him. People think Dexter only kills killers, but that is so 2006. As he has evolved, Dexter has loosened that rule of the code a lot. He killed Nathan Martin, who was a child predator lurking after Astrid, not a killer. He also killed Clint McKay just for being a scumbag and a threat to Hannah's freedom. Last time I checked, being a shitty father wasn't grounds for execution. He was fully prepared to kill Maria Laguerta when she wouldn't back off. In Iron Lake, he was ready to kill the two drug dealers responsible for Harrison's overdose, and they aren't direct killers either. Dexter was literally looking for a reason to kill Elsa's landlord after he merely inconvenienced Harrison. All this to say, Dexter is no stranger to killing people who don't fit Harry's original code, so don't let that idea fool you. Quinn isn't exempt from Dexter's table just because he doesn't look like a traditional killer. And anyway, Quinn is a killer. He definitely killed George Novikov. Novikov was a dirtbag murderer himself, of course, but when Quinn killed him, it was out of anger and to protect his then-girlfriend Nadia. It's the exact type of self-serving, extrajudicial killing that may just make him worthy of Dexter's table if he becomes too inconvenient for him personally. And George's may not be the only blood on Quinn's hands. It is speculated by some that Quinn is partially responsible for the death of his former partner, Detective Stewart. Stewart killed himself after recklessly shooting a suspect in a case he and Quinn were working together back during his time working in narcotics. Quinn kind of explained it away when Deb confronted him, but who knows how much of what he told her is true. He could have been more involved in Stewart's demise than he let on. After all, his unprofessional conduct almost got Batista killed once too. Is it a pattern of Quinn's to put officers' lives in danger for his selfish reasons? In the harshest light, that's 3, almost 4, people dead because of Quinn. For Dexter, that may be a good enough explanation to offer Harrison if he did end up killing Quinn. He already kind of fudged the truth about Logan's death when Harrison asked him why he wasn't in jail after coming out of his coma. Dexter kind of skewed the details of his visit from Teddy to make it seem like he really did kill Logan in self-defense, and that's why he wasn't rearrested. And this all adds up to prove that even though Dexter may not want to kill Quinn, there is still a way that he could end up doing it anyway, and even rationalize it to himself afterwards. And if he can convince Harrison that it was all on the up and up too, he really has nothing to worry about. And that's assuming Harrison even found out about it. Unlike Batista, Quinn may not approach Harrison at all. He may go straight for Dexter, meaning that Dexter could take him out without having to justify his death to anyone, least of all Harrison. Like so many of Dexter's victims before him, Quinn could end up as just another missing persons case. And make absolutely no mistake, in a kill or be killed situation, Quinn ain't coming out on top. He is a great detective, and he'll definitely have his guard up if he goes after Dexter, but that still won't save him. Yes, Dexter is older. Yes, he took a 10-year hiatus from killing. Yes, he recently suffered a traumatic injury that left him in a coma for 10 weeks and gave him chronic shoulder pain. But Dexter Morgan is still that guy. Despite everything I just mentioned, we just witnessed him take down 3 seasoned serial killers like it was nothing and in record time. Though, well, the tattoo collector Sloan was not a novice. He knew to be aware of his surroundings when he was setting up a kill, but Dexter still caught him by surprise and killed him like he was just some regular Joe off the street. The Gemini twins were Mensa members with even more sophisticated methods of survival, and Dexter outsmarted outsmarted and killed both of them within 24 hours of one another. He carried Elsa's giant landlord all on his own, so obviously that shoulder injury isn't holding him back too much. Quinn is smart and spry, but he isn't outmaneuvering Dexter. If Dexter wants Quinn on his table, that's exactly where he is going to end up. And Dexter may not even need to get to Quinn to get him taken care of. He could just as easily get him killed by someone else so his hands stay completely clean. Remember, Joey is a native New Yorker, and when he was living there, he wasn't exactly a Boy Scout. Everyone has enemies, but crooked cops tend to have more than most people. At their lowest moments, dirty cops screw over so many people in some of the worst ways imaginable, and they collect all of the ill will that comes with that. Based on what we know about his past, there is no doubt that Quinn has racked up quite a few enemies. And there are probably a good number of them who want him dead. Just think about what he did to Anton Briggs in Season 3. He illegally kept Anton on as an informal CI and controlled his life just to make some of his cases easier to solve by having a man on the street. Before it was all over, Anton ended up getting abducted and tortured by the Skinner, who was definitely going to kill him if the police hadn't found him first. Anton was so traumatized by what happened that he punched Quinn in the face in the middle of the police department when he found out. That could have gotten him arrested, but he didn't care. That's how much he hated Quinn. Now take that kind of rage and spread it across New York City, apply it to people in the Koshka Brotherhood who Quinn turned on before killing one of their top guys and stealing their money. Think about all of the criminals Quinn helped put away or had shady dealings with. But all Dexter would have to do is put word in the right people's ears that Quinn was in New York, and he would be taken care of without Dexter ever laying a finger on him. Dexter isn't above using this method of conflict resolution either. He already tried to do something very similar to Isaac Serco. Dexter lured Isaac into a bar filled with enemies of the Koshkas, thinking they would execute him on sight, thus eliminating the issues that Isaac was bringing to his life. With a history as shady as Quinn's, it would be light work for Dexter to set him up the same way. Then, there is the issue of jurisdiction, namely the fact that in New York, Quinn has none. He can follow in Batista's footsteps and just stalk Dexter like an obsessive ex-boyfriend if he wants, but that has never worked for anyone before him. It didn't work, Dokes. It didn't work for Liddy. It didn't work for Maria. It didn't work for Batisita, and it won't work for Quinn. And even if he did that, without any police resources, what are the odds that Quinn will get anything usable on Dexter? Back at Miami Metro, they struggle to solve murders and get convictions despite working with an entire team of detectives and having top forensic experts on hand at all times. Even with every resource available to them, they need an entire season to catch whatever serial killer they are tracking at any given time, and sometimes they don't even get them. From ITK to Jordan Chase to the brain surgeon, Miami Metro is routinely taken for a ride by killers who manage to terrorize the city and rake up even more victims, all while police trip over their own feet and botch entire operations. The Stokes had to resort to breaking and entering and burglary to get evidence on Dexter and still got nowhere. Maria had to push for the early release of a murderer to try to catch Dexter in the act, and she failed. Batista was so down bad that he had to track Dexter with a pair of AirPods, and we all know how that turned out. Quinn won't have the advanced recording equipment a police department could provide. He won't have access to the connections Maria did when she wanted private blood work done during her BHB investigation. He won't even have the right to follow Dexter around. Without an ongoing formal investigation that includes Quinn in an official capacity, tailing Dexter around New York would amount to nothing more than harassment, something that could get Quinn locked up or at least put his job at risk. And as Claudette pointed out to Batista, Quinn would need a warrant for anything he got on Dexter to matter anyway. You can't just stalk people, put trackers on their cars, record their private moments, and then take it to the police and expect any of it to lead to a legal arrest, let alone hold up in court. So not only is it unlikely that he'll get anything on Dexter, but even if he did, it would be utterly useless. Quinn has to know this, so he would have to come to New York with a better plan than run-of-the-mill, old-school vigilante work. But if he did go that route, at least his ties to New York might actually be an advantage for him in this area. As stated, there are bound to be people who hate Quinn, but he has to have made at least a few friends on the force while he was in New York City. He could get help from them behind the scenes to make up for his complete lack of resources otherwise. Remember that Liddy forged Quinn's name to rent equipment from the Miami Metro Police Department when he was tracking Dexter. Quinn's cop buddies in NYC could do the same thing for him, minus the forgery. That still wouldn't be enough to overcome all of the jurisdiction and inadmissible evidence issues that I mentioned earlier, but at least he would have a better chance to confirm his suspicions, even if he couldn't use it for an official arrest. Because, let's be honest, that's probably the only help Quinn is going to get. He isn't likely to get any help from top brass on the force. And Claudette and Oliva won't be too keen on helping him either after everything that just went down with Batista. As far as they know, Quinn could be just as off base as Batista seemed. And even if Batista hadn't died, it probably isn't high on their list of priorities to help a detective they don't know who is coming from another state stalk some random guy just on spec. In this case, Dexter was just being harassed by Batista, and Dexter knows that Claudette at least spoke with Angel before his death. She said as much when they spoke after the lecture she gave at Collins College. Claudette gave Batista access to the DMV records that allowed him to track Harrison down in the first place, and that is a problem. Obviously, Dexter isn't a litigious guy, but if this happened to a normal person, the NYPD could have a lawsuit on their hands. The authorities can't just go around helping people stalk and harass citizens. And after realizing that they basically got played by Batista, putting their jobs at risk and opening their department up to intense scrutiny and potential legal action, Claudette and Oliva are definitely going to be a lot more careful about who and what they're aiding and abetting. Point being, unless he gets creative, Quinn is virtually on his own here and he won't be able to take Dexter down by himself. Another thing to consider is that Quinn can't stay in New York forever. With so few resources and having to move so carefully to avoid being caught off guard by Dexter, his investigation is going to be moving at a snail's pace. Even if he uses a leave of absence all of his vacation days, and tries to get it filed as official business or whatever, no matter what, he is going to have to go back to Miami eventually. Unlike Batista, Quinn is not retired and he probably doesn't want to be. So even if he doesn't have any strong personal ties drawing him back to Miami, he'll have to get back to his real job at some point if he wants to keep it. Will he really have enough time to catch Dexter before he runs out of time? Dexter could just wait him out, and he might not even have to stop killing while he does it either if he's careful enough. There's no doubt that the people back at Miami Metro will want answers about Batista's death. They all loved Batista, so they might support Quinn looking into it at first. But eventually, Quinn's superiors will want him back at his post, call him home, and just have to trust that the NYPD will get to the bottom of everything. The truth is that Quinn doesn't need to be there to solve Batista's death, and if he tells anyone that he's down there looking for Dexter, he's going to sound insane. Which brings us back to the first reason Quinn versus Dexter isn't close. Searching for Dexter is just going to make Quinn look nuts in the end. There is just no winning angle Quinn can come at Dexter from, and he knows it himself. And that's the real reason this matchup is over before it even begins. Quinn isn't stupid, he knows he doesn't stand a chance against Dexter. He is going to be devastated when he learns that Angel is dead, and he is going to be furious when he finds out how he was killed. But what can he do? One look in Angel's hotel room and Quinn will know that he has no choice but to back off. He has watched so many people die in pursuit of Dexter when his own family was destroyed. He has seen Dexter kill on camera in a police station, and he'll probably find out that Dexter recently killed a cop and broke out of prison too. And still, nothing ever happens to him. He never loses. The smartest thing Quinn ever did was back off of Dexter when he and Liddy started getting too close. That decision 100% without a doubt saved his life. He knows for a fact that when people challenge Dexter one way or another, they wind up dead. Unless he's suddenly forgotten that, or has completely lost his mind, he won't make the same mistake his former colleagues did by trying to get Dexter arrested. The only way that he'll make it past the tragedy of Batista's death unscathed is if he minds his own business. That's what's kept him alive all these years. Of course, Quinn can still figure out what happened to Angel if it will give him peace of mind. Once he finds out what Batista was doing in New York, he will know in his heart that Dexter was involved in his death. He's free to gather more information to confirm his suspicions, but it doesn't mean he has to do anything more with the information, and it would be best if he didn't. There is a big difference between knowing Dexter's secret and threatening Dexter's secret. Ask Lumen, Angela, and even Quinn himself. You can think whatever you want about Dexter, just don't try to use it against him, and you'll be fine. And to be fair, if Quinn gets his investigation right, he will learn that Dexter didn't even kill Batista. Leon Prater did that. And that's going to be what pissed Quinn in the first place, Batista's murder. If Dexter didn't kill him, maybe Quinn won't really be mad at him anymore. Even if he knows that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, that's not his problem, just like it wasn't his problem all those years ago when he first started suspecting that. Quinn might not hate the idea of what the Bay Harbor Butcher is. Some people really do think that a serial killer who only targets killers is a net positive for society, and Quinn has never been one to look at justice in black and white terms. He is willing to bend the rules or work outside of the law himself to do what he thinks is right. When he killed George Novikov, he had Nadia shoot him in the arm to stage it as self-defense and let her steal the money from the safe because he thought it was fair. He knew in his bones that Dexter probably went into Oliver Saxon's cell with the express intent of murdering him, but still said it was self-defense because he thought Saxon deserved to die. The point is, Quinn isn't a stickler when it comes to using the proper legal channels to get justice, so while it is possible he figures out that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, it's also very possible that he won't act on that knowledge. And that's the one way he stands a chance against Dexter, by not interfering in his life in the first place. And that may sound crazy, the idea of a police officer finding concrete evidence that someone is a serial killer and not acting on it, but it's not unheard of in Dexter's life. Harry did it first, Deb did it too. And sure, they are his family, so they were naturally inclined to protect him, but we have to consider Quinn's priorities too, because they are not the same as Batista. Batista's driving motivator was avenging his friends Dokes, Maria, and Deb, but Quinn isn't worried about getting revenge for those people. He didn't really know Dokes, he wasn't a huge fan of Maria, and as far as we know, he doesn't blame Dexter for what happened to Deb. Plus, he saw Dexter take care of the person who was really responsible for her death. No, his driving motivator for going to New York will be figuring out what happened to Angel, and once he does, no matter what else he finds out, he could very well be content to leave it at that. And aside from justice for Angel, it's also interesting to think about what justice for Deb actually looks like. Quinn really did love Deb, and he knew how much Dexter meant to her. Deb loved Quinn too, but she loved Dexter even more. She would do anything for Dexter, even when it meant abandoning everything she believed in and betraying who she thought she was. If how quickly she agreed to help Dexter cover up the murder of the Doomsday Killer wasn't enough evidence of that, killing Maria Lagerta for him definitely is. And I'm sure we all remember that when Quinn started trying to connect Dexter to Rita's death, Deb was so furious that she broke up with him and almost never spoke to him again. So Quinn is well aware of how protective she was of her brother. As a result, Quinn may not be interested in publicly dragging Dexter's name through the mud, even though Deb has already passed away, because he knows that isn't what Deb would have wanted. And Quinn won't want to bring any shame to her memory, and given the fact that Dexter was her brother and she was the lieutenant of homicide while he was still active in Miami, people may start wondering how much she really knew. If the accusations against Dexter actually took hold this time, it could ruin Deb's legacy and make people speculate that she used her power in the department to help her brother stay out of prison, which she did. There's just no way that Quinn would want any of that to happen, and he definitely isn't about to risk his life trying to catch Dexter just for Deb to wind up hated and disgraced in the end. Even in her death, Deb is still a major reason that Quinn can't hurt Dexter. So what have we learned? At the end of the day, this isn't really a fight, it's a foregone conclusion. Dexter has spent his entire life perfecting the art of staying hidden, and every time someone gets close, he either destroys their credibility, ruins their life, or removes them entirely. Dokes, LaGuerta, Batista, these people weren't amateurs. They were some of the best detectives around, and none of them could make anything stick. Dexter didn't just beat them, he controlled the narrative around them, twisting the truth until they looked unstable, corrupt, and completely unhinged. Quinn, with his already shaky reputation and limited resources, is walking into a battle he just can't win. If Dexter could dismantle legends inside Miami Metro, Quinn doesn't stand a chance of coming out of this clean. And even if Quinn somehow managed to get close, he'd still have to deal with the collateral damage that always follows Dexter. That's the part people tend to overlook. This isn't just about catching a killer, it's about surviving the fallout. Everyone who gets pulled into Dexter's orbit ends up paying a price. Friends, family, innocent bystanders, it doesn't matter. The closer you get to him, the worse things get for you. Quinn knows this. He's seen the bodies, the broken lives, the chain reaction of destruction that seems to follow Dexter everywhere he goes. So even if Quinn thinks he's doing the right thing, he has to weigh whether it's worth risking everything and everyone he cares about just to start a fight he's not even likely to win. And that's really what this comes down to. Quinn already knows the answer to that question. He may not have all the answers, but he knows enough to understand the danger Dexter poses. He knows Dexter isn't just another suspect. He's something far more calculating, far more dangerous, and far more prepared than any other criminal Quinn has ever gone after. He's afraid. Fear breeds hesitation, and against someone like Dexter, hesitation can be deadly. Quinn doesn't have the luxury of making mistakes, second-guessing himself, or even playing things by the book. Dexter will exploit every weakness, every doubt, every misstep, and by the time Quinn realizes it, it'll already be too late. And finally, there's the reality that even if Quinn did figure everything out, what would he actually do with that information? Without jurisdiction, without admissible evidence, and without support from law enforcement, the truth wouldn't be enough. It never is with Dexter, even without those setbacks. The system can't catch him, and going outside the system only plays into his hands. That's how he survived this long in the first place. You see, by existing in that narrow blind spot between justice and criminality. Quinn, trying to be the one who finally brings Dexter down, would only drag him deeper into the same trap that has already claimed the lives of so many others. So the real question isn't whether Quinn can take Dexter down, it's whether he's willing to make the same mistake everyone else did by bothering to try. Because once he crosses Dexter, there's no turning back. And if history tells us anything, it's that people who go after Dexter don't get closure. They get consequences. Quinn is smart enough to know the difference. That's why the best move, and maybe the only move he has left, is to walk away. But what do you think? Does Quinn have a shot of catching Dexter? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments. And if you liked this video, check out our breakdown of everything that has to happen in Dexter Resurrection Season 2. Remember to slash that subscribe button before you go. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.